Hello. Thank you all so much for joining us this evening. We always appreciate when you take time out of your beginning of your week to come spend time with us on a Monday evening. So thank you so much for that. This is the biggest turnout we've ever had for one of these, so it's making me so happy to see you all here. We have a very special discussion today. I know that they're all special, but this one's very special. We have a panel of professionals from different fields here. We're hoping that at the end of this discussion, you will feel confident and educated to talk about homelessness with your personal circles, with people in your community. We know that, well, I always say that Goodness Village is amazing and the staff here is great, but we can only do so much. There's only so many nonprofits in the Tri Valley that can spread the word about what it takes to be a good neighbor. So, in giving you guys the empowerment and instilling all of these practices and resources in you guys, we're hoping that you're able to go out into your communities and be good neighbors as well. So, without further ado, I'm going to allow our panelists to very briefly introduce themselves, explain what field they're representing, and what they hope to contribute to today's discussion. Also, please note that we left some notebooks and pens on each of your seats. Please use those to take notes, write down any questions that you want. I'm going to be asking each of our panelists here 2 questions, and at the end, we're going to open the floor to you guys to ask whatever questions that you want. This is also recorded. It's going to be on YouTube. So please be present in the moment. Listen to our panelists. You're welcome to rewind as many times as you want once it's on YouTube. So try and be present for this discussion today. All right, we're going to start at the end with Tracy.
I thought I was going to go last. Hi, Jackie. Thank you for putting this together, and thank you for inviting me to speak here tonight amongst these amazing professionals. My name is Tracy Walthour. I'm a registered nurse. I've been a nurse for 27 years, and I've worked in many different areas of nursing. I can pretty much say that I've encountered homelessness on a daily, not only at work, but in life as well. So for tonight, I'm just hoping to raise some awareness on what causes people to become unhoused and hopefully educate you guys and us on what we can do to help as a community.
Hello. Am I on? Try again. 1. We can try 3. Hello? Okay. Hi, I'm Kim Damiani. I'm a certified financial planner with Summit Financial Group. So in my day job, I don't work with those who are unhoused and vulnerable. I work with people who have wealth and who are working very, very hard to keep it and to try to be financially independent. So just in my own experience, and I come from a family of entrepreneurs, I've seen struggles like trying to send my sister and I to college, and it's 2008, and there's, unexpected obstacles. That's really what led me into a career in financial planning. I just really want to see people succeed. I've seen the need for education and financial literacy. So hopefully today we can talk through some of those items I've seen in my career that can become challenges and obstacles for people to overcome as they're trying to remain financially independent. Thanks for allowing me to be here.
We're good.
Hello? Hello? Yeah, I think we're on. Hi, my name is Sarah O. I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I have been in the field of social work since 2008. I started out in the field of intimate partner violence and then went to go get my master's degree, and have been working in mental health across the lifespan ever since. Currently, I am the division director for the Alameda County Crisis Services System of Care. And so that means we see people who are in psychiatric crisis, and we also do outreach and engagement all over Alameda County, which obviously includes Livermore, all the way up to Berkeley, and then as far south as Fremont. We go out to encampments, trying to encourage people to sign up for behavioral health care services and provide them with mental health services. And so, just here to share a little bit about my experience and hope to learn from the rest of the panelists as well.
My name is Aaron Horner, and I've had a bunch of different experiences. In my nonprofit work, I've worked with youth and young adults experiencing the foster system, incarceration, young parents. I also worked here in the Tri-Valley at City Serve of the Tri-Valley. If anybody's heard of that, you guys are on here. There you go. Oh, everybody's connected. That's right. I helped to build up a team there. Also worked most recently at First Pres Hayward in South Hayward Parish to operate shelters, food pantry, transitional housing program through some tiny homes there and do some development in the community. And currently am owner of AMH Services, which is just Aaron Matthew Horner Services, out here being the best I can be of myself, consulting nonprofits to help them to start up, scale up, or shape up, and then also DJ. So that's why I know a little bit about microphones. So I got your back if y'all need me. But yeah, I have a lot of experience working with the unhoused population in mid, south, and east counties, and support a lot of organizations working across the entire county.
My name is Josh Jonas, and I'm the executive director and founder of Arukah. We have men's transitional homes here in Livermore, and we focus on men who are coming out of incarceration and also the unhoused, and we help them move forward in life. And we provide a lot of different wraparound services and help them. It's a 1-year sober living home. And I think for me, I'm just excited to learn, right? I'm a learner. I like to just learn different things. So I'm excited to hear from each person here, and that we collectively can come together and learn is a beautiful thing. So, yeah.
All right, so you guys have a little bit of an idea of the plethora of experience that we have up here. So please take advantage, take plenty of notes, because we're going to get real crazy in here with information. So let's start with Kim. You mentioned that you primarily work with people who have wealth, but I would love for you to explain in your experience what financial challenges that you've seen that have kind of pushed people to the edge or caused them to experience something like being unsheltered or facing that reality for the first time.
Yes, absolutely. And even though I work with people with wealth, there's still, it's very common people walk in my office and say that one of their greatest fears is becoming unhoused. So people, I think, know that we're only a couple of decisions away from that being a reality, even when we are working, right? Even though we have a job. So some of the things that I've noticed can become a financial obstacle is just losing that job or seeing reduced hours. And if we don't have an emergency fund, we may not be able to sustain that even if we have some unemployment income coming in. So the financial planning answer for how much your emergency fund should be is roughly 3 to 6 months of all of your expenses in cash at the bank. If you're self-employed or have young children, it might be 6 to 12 months. How can we save that much money when most of us are living paycheck to paycheck? So not only build that up, but be able to sustain that level of savings. So when unexpected things come up, when we're in an area of high living costs, families just aren't prepared for some of these unexpected costs. So we're forced to turn to credit cards. They're quick. We can put our expenses on there. We can stay maybe in our home or meet some of our urgent needs, but then it's really high interest. And the interest rates are borderline predatory and designed to keep us in debt. They are profiting off of us being in debt. There's no incentive to help us get out of those credit cards. So sometimes people then also turn to, I have this old retirement account somewhere. Let me pull out. I just need access to something, not realizing that they've just taken out something that's fully taxable and has a penalty for an early withdrawal. So maybe if they didn't have a financial professional on their team, they didn't understand this and got into a little trouble with the IRS. So those are a couple of things that people, might encounter. I might also say I've seen people become really overconfident and try to take on a risky investment. Oh, hey, my buddies told me this is a really great investment, and they put way too much of their net worth into something that they didn't understand. So sometimes I tell people, I know you're shooting for that, you want that home run. We really think we need to strike it rich or strike it big. but you might strike out doing that, and we might just be better off doing something more in line with how much risk we should be taking based off of what our means are. So sometimes people get overconfident in an investment and do something too aggressive. I've also seen addiction, whether it be addiction to spending and lifestyle, addiction to gambling, can be really catastrophic for families, and that requires more help than even myself as a financial advisor can bring, but it takes a more, holistic approach for that person. So there's a number of things that can really be financial obstacles. And I think the biggest one is building up emergency savings, sustaining it, and trying to avoid high interest debt that's there to keep us, in debt. Happy to elaborate on anything, but hopefully that kicks off our discussion.
Yeah, that was amazing. And I love the passion, by the way. So moving over a little to behavioral health with Sarah, finding behavioral health, finding a therapist, finding mental health care can sometimes feel impossible, even if you're not unsheltered. So people who are unsheltered often have the hardship of trying to find someone who can understand them, trying to find the right type of care. So in your experience working in the mental health field and doing outreach as well, what barriers have you seen people face when trying to access that type of behavioral health care?
Yeah, this is a great question. Can you guys hear me okay? Yeah. So I think as I was thinking about this question, I really think there's two different answers that I want to hit. The first one is going to be kind of more general, and then we go into why. But I think the first barrier really when it comes to the unhoused population and how specifically government entities engage this population is actually the issue of trust. One of my first experiences going out to do homeless outreach, I was with a colleague who's actually a very veteran colleague doing this type of work. He was very well known in specifically the city of Oakland. He was born and raised there and was part of the founding group that started the mobile crisis teams in the late 1980s. He's is a very familiar face to people who are unhoused in Oakland. And I remember observing him having a conversation with someone who was unhoused, and he was doing his thing, letting the person know what was available to them and what they had a right to access. And the person said, "I know that all you're going to do is put my name on a list somewhere, and that list is going to be lost in the void," right? And I think that kind of encompasses a lot of people's experience with specifically government entities coming to offer them something, whether it's housing, whether it's mental health, whether it's healthcare. A lot of times we go and we make these promises and then they don't see a lot of follow through. There's a lot of broken promises, a lot of broken trust. And so I want to go into why that is. It's not because people who work for the county want to make false promises, right? Or don't want to deliver. There's so many barriers that exist when a person does not have a home that is permanently like housed somewhere under a roof, right? We know that people who live in encampments, that is their home, right? But when they're transient and when encampments are constantly being cleared out, it's hard to track where people go, right? So providers have a really hard time tracking. And so it's not that they want to lose touch with people, but it does happen, and it happens pretty often. When I think about what the needs are in terms of behavioral health, things always exist on a continuum, right? You have people that are surviving and functioning that might need something preventative. And you have people who are like floridly psychotic, or you have people who are using in a way that will kill them eventually. And so that's an entire continuum. And really, people like us are only as good as the resources we can give someone. And if the resource doesn't exist, like we can't give it, right? If someone who's floridly psychotic needs to go to the hospital and there's no beds, then we're not a very useful resource, right? And so the problem really is the issue of trust that is damaged because we don't have the resources that we really need in order to meet the need that exists out there. And so the second part of the question, I believe, is about how we can, better this issue. Well, I think there's a lot of things we can do to better the issue. One is, promote better infrastructure. And actually that is happening. There is funding that is allowing us to build more voluntary psychiatric programs for people. But one thing I think that mental health needs to shift its thoughts around are like office-based services. So as most of you know, when you go to the doctor or when you go see your therapist, you go to an office or you see them online, right? Everything is very like stationary, like you come to me, right? I'm in my clinic, you come to my office to receive treatment. For this population specifically, we really need to go to them, and we need to do it consistently in a way that actually builds trust, which is why the idea of like street health, right, and healthcare for the homeless, which is another division in the county, that's why their work is so important. We do partner with them to do that, but really consistency is key with that. And there's also, as I was mentioning on the continuum of care, this type of service really only exists for people that are like severely disabled in terms of their behavioral health functioning. And so for the people that need like a weekly therapy session or psychiatric medications or even something preventative, there's not much, if anything, that actually goes and meets them in their homes, in encampments or wherever they are. And so that's something I think that we could do better as a system and as individuals.
Thank you, Sarah. And switching over to physical health, I want to ask Tracy a question. And for those of you that don't know, Tracy is one of our volunteer nurses that's part of our wellness team. So thank you so much for that. And it's International Nurses Day. So being in Goodness Village, some of our neighbors have had chronic health issues that have kind of landed them where they are, mounting medical debts, preventing them from paying their rent and forcing them to live in their cars just to pay for their medical bills. So in your experience, since you've been working as a nurse for quite some time, what are the most common health challenges that you've seen that could prevent somebody from maintaining their stable housing?
Some of the most common health challenges that I have seen, and I know we talk about physical, but to be honest, I think that mental health conditions and chronic illness would be, in my opinion, two of the most common ones that we see. Mental health conditions such as schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, major depression, can make it extremely difficult for somebody to maintain stability, hold down a job, especially maintain housing. When someone has a mental health condition, they sometimes experience a disconnect from reality. And that disconnect from reality can present itself in many different ways. It can be anything from hallucinations, auditory or visual hallucinations, where they see something that's not there, or they hear something that's not there. It can present itself as disorganized thoughts, or something just as simple as avoiding social situations, withdrawal from activities, difficulty making decisions. When I think about the day-to-day for an average person, I think about, they get up, they get out of bed, they take a shower, they might have a cup of coffee, they get themselves ready to go to work for the day. And by going to work, they're able to make money. And by making money, they're able to put a roof over their heads. They're able to buy food, a vehicle, means of transportation. When somebody has mental illness, they do not have the capabilities to do those things. They sometimes can't get up, get out of bed. That's a big deal for them. Something as simple as an activity of daily living, which we call ADLs, is showering, shaving, making yourself presentable to go out in the community, to go to work for the day. If they don't have the capabilities to do that, then it becomes a vicious cycle. And again, if they can't shower and be presentable and go to work, they can't go to work to make money to provide housing, a roof over their head, or food, or shelter, or a vehicle. So I think it becomes almost impossible for them to live. And this is why they become unhoused. And it's not just mental illness, it's also chronic illness. As a nurse, the things that come to my mind are pain, chronic pain, illnesses such as diabetes, heart disease, that leads to stroke, that leads to the inability to hold down a job. It's the same thing, whether it's mental illness or physical illness. I think that the end result is the same. These people cannot just get up and do what the average person does every day. And we take that for granted. I mean, I wake up in the morning and sometimes I'm like, I don't want to get up out of bed, but I'm going to go to Starbucks and that'll make my morning better, right? Some of these people they don't have a bed to get up and get out of. They don't have the capabilities to get out there and just do simple tasks like the average person can. And so for me, the two most common things that I have seen are mental illness and chronic illness. And whether it's physical or mental, I think that the end result ends up being the same.
Thank you for saying that if you can't take a shower and be presentable for work, how can you go to work? And it kind of just turns into a cycle from there. And the first thing that came to my head was kind of that we have a pull yourself up by the bootstraps mentality here. And sometimes that's impossible for some people. And that kind of is a perfect segue to ask Josh a question. A lot of people think that when somebody has a roof over their head or they leave jail, they are suddenly, all their problems are solved. Everything's amazing. Everything's easy. Why can't you just carry on from there and live your life? Most people think that their struggles would be completely over after that. So in your experience, what do people misunderstand about the reentry process?
Their problems aren't done when they get out of prison? Oh. Yeah, I think there's a lot of misunderstandings about it. I think actually their problems are just getting going, right? That they've faced incredible things within prison and jail that they have to deal with, and a lot of trauma that comes with that. But then they come into a society that's oftentimes, especially for men, unwelcoming, and because arms aren't wide open when you're to receive men when they come out of prison most of the time. When a guy comes out of prison and they don't have any support, they're given $200. And with that $200, they need to find housing, they need to find food, they need to find clothing. They need to make sure they're at their parole 24 hours later. So how long does $200 last us in the Bay Area? So some of you went out last night for a meal and with a couple of people and spent $200, right? So it's one system that's broken, which is our prison system, and we have another system that's broken, which is receiving people after from formerly incarcerated people, right? And so that's a broken system also. And so and a lot of the men that I deal with are dealing with the mental health aspect, right? And so the recidivism has been set at about 68%. After being out for 3 years, 68% will go back to prison. And it's been that way for decades, right? It hasn't changed really. It goes up and down just a little bit. You'll get different reports, but it hovers around 68%. And a lot of that has to do with being able to get a job where a lot of times they don't have the work history, they don't have the support, they can't get something quickly, right? Because they got to get something quickly. Some of it has to do with AI now, where they're getting on Indeed and LinkedIn. And I've seen this with my own guys that are in the house, and they will apply for hundreds of jobs and they won't even get a reply. And they're qualified, right? And so AI is kicking them out and they're not even getting to those jobs, to the companies. Sometimes it's society and societal issues where they will, a lot of times will go back to their old environments because they are unwelcomed. And so they go back to their old social environments that may not be healthy and have lack of family support. And so then they're just surrounding themselves with people who may be directing them in the wrong direction, even if they wanted to do well, right? But it's who you surround yourself with a lot of times. And if they do get transitional housing, and although there are some amazing groups out there, many times from my experience with the guys that I deal with, and just the stories that I've heard, right, is they're in very depressed areas. where drugs and alcohol are just flowing through the homes. And they're really just there for a bed and some food, and not really trying to give the guy opportunity to help them move forward. And so my hope, and what Arukah stands for, is giving that guy as many opportunities as we can, and they've got to make the most out of those opportunities. Even like when I hear about the mental health part of it, right? So we partner with an organization that gets our guys mental health and professional clinical counseling. They can get medication if they need to get medication. And it's not just 1 or 2 sessions, it's as long as they need it. And it's a beautiful program. And so, but there's only so many spots and only so much funding and those kind of things. So I think those are, I don't know if I answered the question there,
That was
but
great.
there you go.
So switching gears just a little bit to substance use and homelessness. So one of the very common misconceptions that you guys may have walked in here with is that homelessness and substance use are one and the same. They go hand in hand no matter what the circumstances are. But that's not always the case, and is actually a very, very harmful stereotype that's constantly perpetuated. So Aaron, thank you. Aaron, can you please we can snaps. Aaron, if you could please shed some light on the relationship between trauma, homelessness, and substance use.
All right, like 30 seconds. I got this. Can we talk to the LCSW sitting to my right? Wow. So that's a big question. If you would like to take out pens and paper, I can give you a bunch of information to go to. I was looking all of them up as we were sitting here. So there's a thing called the point in time count. If y'all know about that, every 2 years, any community that is utilizing HUD funding has to do a point in time count. And based on the most recent count, which was in 2024, we had in Alameda County roughly 8,900 people counted on the streets. Out of those, self-reported 28.5% reported self-reported substance use, 34.8% severe mental illness, 30.4% chronic health issues. This is just proving everything that they said, by the way. This is a study. Physical disabilities is 32.5%, developmental disabilities 17%, HIV/AIDS 2%, and any disabling condition 60%. So those weren't cumulative. It was some people reported multiple, right? So you're dealing, if you happen to have a chronic physical illness, you might have other mental challenges that come as a result of that. I know I have a family member that's elderly, which is the largest population of folks becoming homeless right now is people over the age of 62. So just take a deep breath and soak that in real quick. But this female individual in my family had a psychiatric break, and we called the hospital. The hospital said, you've got to bring her into the ER. I don't know if you guys have ever worked with somebody who's having a psychiatric break, but that's not where they want to go. So when we got there, they found out that she had a UTI, and that is what was causing the mental health challenges that she was exhibiting. So if you just walked up to her on the street, you would have thought that she was having a whole mental health crisis. But in fact, her body had an infection, and in elderly women that presents sometimes like a mental health challenge. So we're going to misdiagnose that. And that'd be really dangerous if we had a gun and we're making a decision based on all these things, right? Not to go into that, but also you can also add in there, racism is built into our systems. So Josh talked about systems that are broken. Racism is a piece of our culture in the United States. It's a thing. We're not past that. So it still exists today. You also look at gender related issues, and there are genders that are in more danger out on the streets than others, right? So these are all factors that are coming into play, and they all put into these barriers that people have to face. Okay. And if we're looking at people that are in recovery, like myself, I know there's a couple in the room, I'm not alone. We have to have our basic needs met before we can climb to the next level. No matter how many people want to do it. And, I've got a lot of family and friends that want to do it. They can't pull me there. I'm a heavy dead weight, right? I have to step up and I have to move forward, right? And the only way I do that is if I have all my basic needs met. If you're familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs, it's spelled with a V, MASLOV. I would look that up, but we can't move to the next level until we have our basic physiological needs met. I mean, know what those are? Physiological needs? Food, shelter? Nope. Sexual needs? Sleep. Water. If you've ever been on the street, you know that sleep is one of those. Because I know people right now. We just had church yesterday. I'm a pastor of a church of folks that are unhoused, and there's a guy. I love him to death. Him and I went to high school together. He's still on the streets. He was sleeping the entire time because it was the daytime, and at nighttime he uses fentanyl to stay awake so that he can protect everybody else's stuff because he's the security for the park and the encampment. So he stays awake all night, and that's not a problem that we experience, right? So using fentanyl to stay awake and to protect people that you love is not a thing that we would consider because we have doors. Why don't you just lock your door? Well, there's no door. Well, people are defecating everywhere. I don't know if you guys know this, but all people defecate, right? This is it's a fact. And what has happened in our society is because we believe that addiction, homelessness, poverty is a person's fault, then we close off opportunities for them. So as a society, we don't have public restrooms anymore. It's very rare that there's a public restroom that doesn't have a code on it. I was told at a Starbucks, I went from one Starbucks to the next because I had meetings and I walked in with a drink. This just happened to me. I don't want to put them on blast, but I'll do it. I went into a Starbucks and they told me that I'm not able to ask for water unless I bought a drink in this visit from this store. And I had water. I'm trying to get a lot more water. I was told by my medical professional I need to drink more water. But I was cut off. And the reason I was cut off is because somebody believes that I'm abusing water or something. I don't know. But if we hold that mentality, it causes more trauma. So being homeless, not having a home, being unhoused is traumatic. It is trauma inducing. So all of these marks, you can look all of these up and look at 60% reported that they have some sort of disabling condition in their lives. That is traumatic. And if you can't sleep at night, you're worried everybody's going to take everything from you. Over 30% reported that their vital documents, their immunization records, their IDs, all of those have been taken in encampment sweeps in the last 12 months. So if we're talking about, okay, but hey, you should get sober. If you get sober, we'll get you into a house, right? And that happens, we get into a house and then we're like, man, it's 3 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning, and I'm thinking about all these things that have bothered me. I need to use something. And what I'll see, I'm getting deep into this conversation. I don't know how long you want me to go. What's the time? But I'll say the only way that we can actually solve those things if we have community around us to provide the basic needs that help us to get through our temptations and get through to the other side. Because sometimes it only lasts 30 seconds. But if we can get 30 seconds, we have a community and there's a yellow house and at 4 a.m. you're jonesing and you can go in there and somebody will give you a pastry and that's all you needed and it calmed you down, then you might be able to still stay sober after you lost a loved one recently.
Beautiful. So that was our first round of questioning for our panelists. I do have another round of questions here. I just wanted to say thank you for shouting out Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I love pointing that out to people. Something else is that a lot of times businesses and other people in society make people who are unsheltered feel like it's their fault. Why can't you do this? Why won't you do that? Why can't you just do this because everyone else is doing it? But imagine you haven't slept in the last 24 hours, or when's the last time you had something to eat, or even a good shower. You guys all know what it feels like to want to take a shower and not be able to take a shower. I don't even like when my hands are sticky. I can't focus on anything else. So imagine trying to tell someone, pull yourself up by the bootstraps, just figure it out, because I did. You guys are not even on the same playing field. So it's almost inhuman to ask somebody to do that. So moving on to our second line of questioning, we're going to go back to Kim. And whenever you come across someone who maybe has experienced a crisis, what systemic barriers or financial barriers are kind of set up so that people can't, let me say that question again so it's easier. What financial or systemic barriers do people commonly face after coming back from a crisis?
Yeah, this is a great question. So a few things that I've seen starts just at the bank. You finally save up again your first $100, $500, and then you log in and see low funds like charge. So banks start charging you per month because you didn't meet a certain threshold. To me, it's just absolutely ridiculous. So that starts to eat away at your hard-earned cash. Credit scores follow you. So you missed a few payments on something and you racked up some credit card debt. And even though you're back on your feet and you've, kept your job, it still didn't do anything quick enough to improve that credit score to allow you to apply for that apartment. And then let's say you do apply and get an apartment. They want first and last month's rent for a security deposit. We need to be able to support people and have programs that help support with security deposits, because you can be doing all the right things and just be unable to, generate that savings. And then I also told you need this emergency fund and all these things. It can be overwhelming. So those are a few things. And of course, just the credit card debt and finding ways to, attack and prevent, when all possible, this high interest debt. It just becomes really hard to get out from under it. So that continues to be a problem, because if you miss a payment, not only do you have that interest rate, you have a late payment, and it just truly becomes so overwhelming, especially if you have more than one card. People don't know, which one do I pay off first? And, we'll get a chance, I think, up here tonight to share resources. So I have some ideas on places you might be able to go look to kind of help you prioritize some of those things. So anything I can elaborate on? I think those are some of the main
No,
ones.
that was great, because it
okay.
kind of shows that it turns into a snowball effect for some people. You miss one payment and now you're worried about it the next month, but you still haven't been able to take care of what else you need to take care of. So it kind of just turns into a snowball. And before you know it, you're trying to figure out what the heck just happened. So that was great. Moving back to Sarah, in your experience in crisis care specifically, what are some key moments or insights that have helped you realize that homelessness can happen to anybody?
Sure. So I have two kind of personal experiences that inform kind of my conceptualization of this. The first one is actually a personal experience. I have two personal experiences, one professional experience. I'm going to keep them short. But the first experience actually was when I was a child. When I was in middle school, a close friend came out to his family as wanting to be in a same-sex relationship with another boy. And his family literally kicked him out of their home. And their rationale was that they were afraid that he was going to molest his sister, which is odd because he just told them that he was gay. And also he's not into that. But that was how he became homeless. He actually couch surfed 2 weeks at a time among different families and different friends, my house being one of them. And it was actually collective pressure from other parents placed on his immediate family that forced them to take him back. And so that was my first experience with somebody becoming unhoused. And he was, we were in 7th grade, so he was very young. And you can imagine how that situation might have turned out had he had a different community. I grew up in Cupertino, which is an extremely well-resourced area. People often have more than they need, and they were able to provide for him for months, right? But had he grown up in a different community, had he not necessarily had the group of friends, maybe if he didn't speak the language, I don't know what would have happened to another person in this scenario. Or rather, I do know what would have happened to another person in this scenario. So that's a personal story, number one. Professional story number two. I had recently started working as a social worker with a team called the Geriatric Assessment and Response Team. And this team is actually under the crisis system of care. And our jobs were to go out into the field and meet with older adults who were at risk for XYZ, who needed mental health treatment or whatever it was. And so I'm going to be purposely vague to protect identities of people. But I had a client who was an older adult who would go deeply into stories around trauma. And so kind of going back to what Aaron was saying, that trauma literally changes your brain. Depending on how long you're exposed to it, whether or not you have complex PTSD or simple PTSD, depending on a whole myriad of factors, it changes the way you can regulate. It changes the way you can function. It changes the way that you can problem solve, like what you're capable of. And so this particular client would talk at length about various traumatic things that have happened to her. And it was painful. It was like a painful experience for her to relive these things. But part of it was part of her treatment, was part of her therapy. And there was one conversation that I remember distinctly because it hit something for me. But she was talking about how her father used to physically abuse her, like very severely. And she had run away. She had gotten into the garage and he was coming after her, but she had run away, and so he let her go. And she ran away to a nearby church, thinking that churches are safe places, right? And she has a core memory of standing on the doorstep and knocking on the door and repeatedly knocking on the door, just like hoping someone would come, and nobody ever came. And I remember that story being kind of hitting home about how homelessness and our unhoused neighbors is not the responsibility of one place. It's not just the responsibility of like one family or one friend or one agency or one program. It's really like a collective movement that keeps people from becoming unhoused. It's a collective movement to keep people safe, whether that's psychologically or physically, right? All the different levels of the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? And so actually, I'm just going to end with that because that was my primary point, was that it really could happen to anyone, depending on what your life situation is, depending on what your constitution is, all of those things. Like none of us are immune to the situations that people who are unhoused face.
Thank you, Sarah. And during one of our first Good Neighbor projects with Kevin Adler, one of the things that he mentioned is that sometimes people become unhoused because of the catastrophic loss of family or catastrophic loss of support. There's probably all of you, honestly, if you didn't have a family member that you could sleep on their couch for a couple weeks, or a friend that you could go crash in their guest bedroom for a couple weeks while you get yourself back on your feet, what would you have done? So I think that, like you said, it's not just one person's responsibility or one organization's responsibility. They need full system support. They need support from multiple avenues. So moving back to Tracy, what role can healthcare providers play in supporting individuals who are at risk for homelessness or becoming unsheltered?
That's a great question. I think healthcare providers play or can play a crucial role in supporting the unhoused or people who are at risk for becoming unhoused. We were taught all of these skills, right, that may seem minuscule, how to check a blood pressure, how to listen to a heart sound, how to listen to a lung sound, how to listen, period, right? And to touch upon what everyone else has been saying, it's so difficult for the unhoused to get somewhere or get help from a certain place. So you think, oh well, they can go to the ER, they can go to urgent care, they can go get help if they really want help. But looking back on what we've talked about and how difficult it is for these people to get to a place, I think that one of the most important things that we can do as healthcare professionals is bring the healthcare to them. And how can we do that? We can volunteer at Goodness Village. I volunteer once or twice a month, just offering blood pressure checks, listen to heart sounds, listen to lung sounds, change a bandage, or just sometimes they just drop in and they just want to talk. And that goes along with the whole mental part of it too. And I thoroughly enjoy each and every one of the neighbors that come in to see me, because they teach me a lot. They teach me, number one, to be grateful and thankful for what I have, not to fret about the small things that I fret about on a daily basis. I'm trying to get better about that. But most importantly, I know the question was, what can healthcare professionals do? And that's a great question. But I also think that you don't have to be a healthcare professional to provide basic needs to the unhoused. you can, funny story. I wasn't even going to tell this story, but it's not funny. But you brought up the Starbucks and the water. And I was thinking about how I get up every morning and I get out of bed and I take my shower, blah, blah, blah. And I go to Starbucks every single morning to get my grande non-fat caramel macchiato and my blueberry muffin. And I take that for granted. I really do. But one morning I went to my Starbucks, which is, I live about 15 minutes from here by car. So just to get a perspective of where this Starbucks is, it's about 15 minutes from here by car. Our neighbors in Goodness Village live right out back here. I saw one of our neighbors at that Starbucks in the morning, and he had gotten himself out of bed, taken a shower, brushed his teeth, done all the things that we encourage them to do that is very difficult for them to do. And he got on his bike and he rode to Starbucks on his bike. And all he wanted was a cup of water. And I saw him and, I said hello, gave him a hug. Hi, oh my gosh, what are you doing all the way over here? How did you get here? Oh, I rode my bike and I'm so thirsty and I'm just going to get myself a cup of water. And I said, can I buy you a coffee? No. I don't want a coffee. I just want a cup of water. And they wouldn't give him a cup of water because he hadn't purchased a cup of coffee or anything for that matter. So him and I went in line and we waited our turn and I bought him a bottle of water. And I left literally crying. And I guess my point to everybody is you don't have to be a healthcare professional to help these people. You can just be a human being, just be kind and compassionate and understand how difficult it is for them to complete a simple task. Never mind a difficult one of riding your bike for who knows how long it took them to get there just to ask for a cup of water. It's okay to approach somebody who's unhoused and ask them, are you cold? Are you hungry? Do you need something to drink? I had a conversation with somebody a couple of days ago. I'm actually embarrassed to say it was a family member of mine. I won't say who it was. Nobody in this room, though, so you guys are safe over there. Patrick, Scott, you're good. But she asked me, she said, well, I have kids, and you're telling me you want me to go up to somebody who's on the street and ask them if they want a cup of water or a blanket or, if they need anything. And I said, yeah, sit down next to them, pull up a curb. I mean, they're no different than you are. And she says, well, what if they pull out a gun or a knife? And I said, first of all, anybody can pull out a gun or a knife anywhere. It could be someone in this room. It could be someone at a bank. It could be someone at Safeway. So if you guys could take away anything from this panel tonight, just know that you can make a difference. You don't have to be a healthcare professional to make a difference. Anybody can just be human.
Thank you so much, Tracy. Thank you. And that reminds me of something Kim said when I first started working at Goodness Village almost 4 years ago, is that some people haven't had someone make eye contact with them in weeks, say their name in weeks, have a conversation with them in weeks. So that really turns you into feeling like less of a human. You're kind of a shell of your former self. So thank you so much for sharing that story. Moving back to Josh. What would you say are some of the biggest barriers that men face when trying to break that cycle of homelessness, incarceration, and addiction? And how do you guys support them at Arukah?
Well, there's going to be a little bit of a theme here. Community, right? I think that's probably one of the biggest issues especially for guys who are coming out of prison and sometimes they're in an area that they don't know. Many of the guys who come to us aren't from Livermore, but they got paroled in Alameda County. And so they have to go back to a lot of times where they're paroled to. And so they have to restart and rebuild community. And so one of the ways we do that is try to get them into different churches and different groups and different people, introduce them to different people so that they can start building those friendships. And what I've found is that when you put a guy with a good group of people, he's going to start to emulate those people, right? Like you start putting him with some high caliber people, just like yourselves. Uh, they thrive at that interconnection and just having deep relationships with people. And it would, like, I'll give you an example. One of our guys, he's part of a church, but he's part of a hiking group, right? And these people do the most incredible hikes. Whether it's up, they just did Half Dome not too long ago, right? I mean, they're doing, but he very physically fit, and he loves to hike. Well, he got introduced to this group, and he made the most of that opportunity, and he was able to build these friendships and these relationships. So they go more than they go deeper than just how you doing. They're actually friends with each other. Another one of our guys, we have a box truck. We get donations and stuff like that, and the caps were busted, and so I didn't want to pay to have that fixed. So I got a buddy who has a ranch, who has the riveting gun and stuff. He said he could fix it. And in my mind, I go, gosh, these two, this guy that I got in my house and this guy, we'll call him James and Nick. Nick's in my house. James is the guy who's going to fix our truck. These guys, I think, would connect. But I don't know, right? And so I just asked Nick to come with me. James doesn't know that he's coming with me. And we're going to go fix this truck together. And so we go out there. Nick drives the truck. I drive my own truck. And these two start to hit it off. And they're having a good time. They're joking with each other. They're talking with each other. And then I strategically say, well, I got to go right around lunchtime. And I go, hey, can you give him a ride back? He goes, oh, yeah, no problem. We'll go out to lunch. And I go, great. That's awesome. And so they go out to lunch. They have deeper conversations. These guys are buddies now, right? He's taking them to hockey games. He's taking him to, he had one of his friends is a coach at Cal High. He goes, hey man, Nick, you want to go with me to a high school football game? Let's go. They're going out to lunches and dinners. They're in a Bible study together on Tuesday nights. They're doing life together. And Nick has never experienced that. And this is a guy who's been in and out of prison all of his life, almost all of his life, from when he was probably about a teen all the way up. Now he's about 65. He was homeless, living in the ditches. He talks about it for years. This is a chronic thing that's going on with this man, but he has found healing and restoration in the relationships that he's building. And I think that would be my encouragement to you, is to give that water, to have that conversation, but maybe even go a little deeper, right? And I get it. There's a scariness to it and all that kind of stuff, but find an organization then, right? Like Goodness Village. There's a lot of organizations out there where they've already vetted. I guess that's the best way to say it. I don't know. That's a horrible thing. I don't know. That's bad. But at least you know, hey, they know this person, right? And if you're feeling nervous about that, then come in but have those deeper conversations, because they are really thriving for that connection. And beyond, I'm mentoring somebody, but just being a friend, and then giving opportunities where you can to that person. I think those are the greatest things we can do.
Nice, thank you. And we've witnessed that firsthand at Goodness Village through our volunteer visitor program, where volunteers can come and hang out with our neighbors, do workshops, take them out for coffee, take them out for lunch, and we hear really meaningful stories coming out from those relationships. So thank you for sharing that. Aaron, you have lots of experience working in shelters. I would love for you to tell us, what are the biggest barriers that people face when seeking stability, and what have you seen be the most effective in helping them find that stability?
Yes, many overnight, all day. I know. I shout out to all the Goodness Village overnight people. Where they at? They're all sleeping, just so you know. Graveyard is a different group of people, y'all. That's a whole different world. If anybody ever has worked graveyard, shout out to the nurses. You know that, that's the whole thing. I got a bunch of things written down. I'm gonna try to run through real quick, but I think So there's a study that's called the Criminogenic Needs Assessment Study. We've kind of hinted towards that up here. It's a framework that lets you know what are the things that cause people to recidivate, right? Then go back to do a thing that's a challenge. In recovery, one of the things we say is our using is us seeking an external solution to an internal problem. It's an external solution to an internal problem. And I personally believe that every human being is addicted to something. But y'all gotta take that as you take it. But I'll just say each one of us is doing something externally. May it be, an iced venti Americano with an extra shot. I don't know. It's like, whatever. But there's things, right? We all do things. In the criminogenic needs assessment, they come up with these categories. These are the issues that they measure to see if someone is going to reuse, if someone is going to recommit. Impulsivity. I personally have ADHD. I was just re-diagnosed. I'm 45 years old. I was just diagnosed and have been able to get medication to that because I have insurance, because I have a home, because I have an ID, which I have to use every single time to get that, right? I can't get that without swiping my ID. And it is curbed my impulsivity to be able to get the medications and utilize caffeine at the right times, which is not all the time. I found out. Pro-criminal attitudes, it's a little loose, but just if the individual believes that criminality is the way for them to generate income. Pro-criminal associates, right? One of the neighborhoods that is the most per capita location for people that are exiting from prison in Alameda County is unincorporated Ashland. And you guys probably don't know what that is unless you're from there. But the reason it is, I don't know if you've been from 150th to 174th. Those are the streets all the way along International Boulevard and from International till Foothill. Y'all with me? Y'all following me? What do those houses look like? They're all apartments, thousands and thousands and thousands of apartments. So what happens is you have to get something affordable. You've got to land in a place. You're exited to the county you have to go to. You don't get to choose. So you're placed there and it's unincorporated, which means the city is not responsible for you, right? The county is responsible for you. So your mayor is the county supervisor. And I don't know if you guys realize, but Sarah is a little bit difficult to get in touch with directly, but her department would be the mental health department for people in that area, right? Because there's not availability in every single space. I don't know if you guys know, but Kaiser left Hayward a long time ago, right? So there's these gaps in access, right? Another one is poor family relationships. Anybody here have poor family relationships? The rest of y'all are liars. Oh my gosh. Just so you know, they were all, look, they all took deep breaths, but didn't raise their hand. Okay. Lack of work. Drug misuse, alcohol misuse, leisure time activities. So they look at those measures and they say, hey, we can actually prove that this person's going to reuse because they don't have positive folks in their life. So you answer like, what are the barriers? These are the barriers, right? These are categories of barriers, but that looks different for every person. So what are the solutions? You get them connected to other people that are in recovery, people that are open with it, people that are willing to accept people. You get them connected to mental health services. You get them connected to financial health. You get them connected to physical health. I ask y'all a question. What is it that would cause us to put a 7th grader on the street? Right? What is it that would cause us to refuse water from human beings? What is it that would cause us to criminalize bathroom usage? Just recently, and we're talking about personal things here, right? I would also bring up systemic issues. I think we need to make it policy that it's illegal to refuse people access to water. I think we should propose policy that it's illegal to not have restrooms available for public and for children. Anybody have any children? You ever had children that had to go to the bathroom and they're being potty trained? Yeah, okay, right. But I think we should put policies in place to make those things illegal and make us realize that the thing that causes us to push somebody that is in 7th grade out of their home is the fact that we can't face our own feeling of inadequacy. The alternative for us to be able to go and talk to somebody sitting on a corner. I have 3 children. All 3 of them are personal friends with people that are unhoused. All of them have personal friends that use substances or have used substances. I have personal friends that are mentors of mine that have done some crazy things in the past and are doing great right now. I learn from them every single day. So I think there's this place where like the way that we're able to get past that piece is not like a 7th grader. Come on, y'all. And that story, unfortunately, is not unique in this county. It's not unique in this state. It's not unique in this country. It's literally worldwide a problem around people and their sexual orientation, which is a thing we're born with. And like we would cast somebody out and they would live on the street, because the alternative of that is for us to come to terms with the fact that we feel inadequate as human beings. And I'll say the overcoming of those barriers, right, for trauma. I brought up race in the past. I'll bring it up again. Like, who are we working with that is a different race than us? Who are we supporting without asking questions? Who are we supporting that is a different gender, different sexual orientation, different religious background from us? We need to be around people that are different than us and just be human to human. Who are we working with? Who are we hanging out with that is currently using? Because I'll tell you right now that all the studies prove that the opposite of addiction is not abstinence. Anybody that works at Goodness Village, the opposite of addiction is connection. The opposite of addiction is connection. If we're connected to other people, we're connected to ourselves, then we do not need to use. We have the internal solution to the internal problem. We're no longer seeking external solutions. I would say all of this is necessary. If you look at the Maslow hierarchy of needs, it's all of this, plus food, plus water, plus this bottom line piece that we are accepted without judgment. And every single one of us, I know this to be true. Each one of you is really looking for your parents to accept you just as you are. So then that's the answer. If we can just accept people exactly as they are. And, I would call that love. We can call it compassion, but we need to have that in policy. We need to have it in practice. We need to have it to where the law makes it illegal to not accept anybody for any reason. And then we back it up. And I'll tell you right now, there's some of us that are less in danger with situations because of our skin color. We need to stand in the way. We need to put ourselves physically in the way of this danger.
Thank you. It's like you're talking about being an ally rather than just letting it happen. Well, we do have one closing question for the entire group, so anyone's able to answer this. It's an either or question. So what's one actionable step that our audience can take to support those experiencing homelessness? Or what is one misconception about homelessness that you think needs to be debunked? Just one.
We'll continue in order. I'm happy to go first, but I'm going to just give you a hybrid answer if that's okay. But I just think a big misconception is that those facing homelessness, aren't working and don't have an income, because that's just not the stats just do not support that. So thinking that income alone is the issue, it is not. But what I will say, some resources, in a moment of crisis, it's probably challenging to try to get someone into a financial literacy workshop. But what I might say is, if you know of resources in your community or the career centers, the local junior colleges, the universities, be willing to provide those when the time is right. There's online resources that are great through AARP, which is an organization that help give education to our seniors. The CFPB. I would also say, like, Dave Ramsey, he may not be for everyone. He does have a religious element, but he has one of the best programs I've seen just for how to quickly get out of debt and save your first $1,000. So just have some resources for when the time is right and you're out of that fight or flight mode. And I'll close with also saying, I wish that financial literacy were taught in schools. I wish that were policy. And I think that would also encourage us to be talking about it in our households. It's a shame that it's taboo sometimes, especially for cultural reasons, to talk about finances, but we need to be talking about it. How do we, what's a budget? What are taxes? What is Social Security? How do we open a bank account? Credit versus debit? Just these small, simple household conversations can really help. And I wish we were having more of those.
Sarah, would you like to take a stab at the question?
Sure. I think something that took me a really long time to learn is that people who are unhoused are not children. You don't know better than them, and they might not want the same things that you want for them. And that doesn't mean that they're immature or dumb or bad. They're adults. They live in a particular culture and they get to make their own choices for the most part. Right. Well, that applies to all of us. We all get to make our own choices for the most part. But whether it's in private practice for me, if I have a client who's making choices that I wouldn't make for myself, or whether it's I'm meeting someone in the community who is one of our unhoused neighbors who's also making choices that I wish were different. Sometimes the hardest thing is just to meet someone where they're at, right? To interact with them without judgment, to try to provide support to them like unconditionally and provide people with unconditional positive regard. It's like one thing to say it, but it's another thing when they're like sitting in front of you telling you that they plan on doing XYZ, right? Like that's hard because you care about them and you wish that they would make different choices, right? And so that's a challenge for me. And I would just kind of encourage you all to challenge yourselves in the same way.
Tracy.
In closing, I would just like to say that anyone in this room could become homeless or unhoused at any time. I know lots of people who are unhoused that were once upon a time super successful CEOs of companies, multimillionaires, and then because of an illness fell upon some hard times. So if there's one thing, because I have to choose, I promised Jackie I would choose one or the other. I'm going to say if there's one thing that you guys could take away from this, it would be to just not judge. Just don't judge. Don't judge each other. Don't judge people that you see on the streets. Don't judge someone who's a multimillionaire or someone who's unhoused, because I truly believe in my heart that we are all the same.
Josh.
I think I'll give you what changed me. How about that? And then hopefully that'll encourage you to live maybe differently or more abundantly. My wife and I are actually great budgeters. She's the budgeter in my family and I'm the spender. And no. And my wife and I'm pointing at her about, we are not married. Easy. Whoa. No. That's awesome. I think I got a daughter your age. All right, here we go. I'm a grandpa. I mean, come on. All right, so we're budgeters. We're planners. We love Dave Ramsey. We use it in Arukah, and they go through financial stuff. Anyways, we're always planning. We're always saying, what's our 1 year, our 2 year, what's our 5 year, our 10 year? Does it ever work out that way? Probably not. But we're always thinking ahead in our lives. And 1 year, many years ago, I said, well, what's our 200-year plan? And she looks at me and she goes like, what? And I go, yeah, because the idea is that after 200 years, everyone that you have ever met, everyone that you've ever given a glass of water to, everyone that you've come alongside of or given money to financially or just mentored or just been a friend, they'll all be dead. So what's our lasting impact? Is it, and not that we would be known or statues or people would know us in the books or anything like that or online, but that could our love be felt after 200 years? And so we started to really think about that idea of a 200-year plan. Like, could we live a life that is in a way that's so radically different than how we're living it now, that it would actually make a difference after 200 years. And that's kind of how Arukah started, based on that of could you give someone who has a high desire to do well, who has very limited opportunities, give them incredible opportunities, and what would happen. And we have found that with the right support and wraparound services and just love, that changes a guy going on one path, and now he's going into a completely different path, being a better husband and father, an employee, and a friend. And so I think everyone needs to have a 200-year plan, not just the people who are running organizations, right? Everyone needs that, because you don't know that conversation that you have with that person as you give them that glass of water will make. That could be the time that a turning point in that person's path, right? That ripple effect. And so my encouragement is have a 200-year plan and live it out. Live this love out that we have in all of us, this compassion that we have out. And if you see a need, fill the need. I guess that's it.
All right, I've got one group of myths that I would like to dispel. She didn't say no. There's a lot of myths that have been dispelled. There was a large study by UCSF Benioff. If you guys are interested in the data, they just did the largest study of homelessness ever, and it was in California. And they interviewed thousands of people from around the state. And there's this big myth that says everybody that's here, that's on these streets, they came here to be homeless here because California weather. They're in San Francisco because they can make all the money. They're taking all our money from our cities. They're going to LA because, I don't know, Hollywood, I don't know, whatever it is. But they did a study. They checked every single county. And I know personally, I served 1,174 people in 2024. And out of that, 86% of my folks were from within 3 miles of the location of the shelter. Statewide, it's 79%. So 80% of people that are on our streets are from our neighborhood. Okay. The most recent count says we got 8,900 people on the streets. This, so you know, the count is not accurate. You're not going to count people that are in their cars. They're way smarter than you. Just so you know, if they're surviving in a vehicle and they've got a registration and they got a gym membership, you'll never know. You work with them, you work for them. And that'll blow your mind. And they're sleeping in their car all night. And they move every 2 hours, because if you stay in one spot for 2 hours, the police are going to come wake you up. There's a woman that I worked with here that she was in a car with her sister and 4 children. There were 6 people in one vehicle. She had a baby while in that car. Went right back to that car. Nobody ever knew. Yep, you wouldn't have found her. She's a savage. So everybody's from their neighborhood. The other thing is that people are using drugs. I talked to you about the percentages. It's 34% severe mental illness, 28% using substances. And I would say if we're looking at, let's say there's 15,000 people on the streets, 1 out of every, I don't know, what is that, 3,000 people that are using drugs in Alameda County. There's 1.6 million people in Alameda County. How many people are using drugs in houses? Yeah, more than 3,000. Right? So factually, like, it's just a myth. It's just not physically possible to think that everybody on the streets is actually using a drug. It's not happening. And people ask me, oh, are people using drugs because they're on the street? Or are they on the street because they're using drugs? And I'm like, when did that become any of my business? And how about you're thirsty? How about you need a bathroom? How about you need to take a shower? There's a woman I worked with behind Kohl's over here, right off the freeway. I went and we grabbed her and we took her over to get a shower. And she's like 4. And this was like in July. And I was like, why do you keep saying 4? It's the 4th shower she took that year. Right? Yeah, that'll get you, right? And then they talk about the best possible way. Everybody asks questions around like, should I give money to people? Should I not? Should I only give water? Should I da? Studies have shown the best way to get money to people in need is to give money to people in need. Like literally. I used to work at CityServe. One of the board members gave us a van. There's no social services out here, just so you know. You can go to the social services office. You can get the application. You can't turn it in Livermore. You have to turn it in Hayward. You have to turn it in East Oakland, which is 5,000 miles away from Livermore, in case you're wondering. There's no BART that goes to Livermore, right? And what's the bus out here? Wheels? Over there, it's called AC Transit. The Wheels tickets don't work over there. So anyways, that's the thing. I was driving people over there and I had, my money in my pocket for my lunch. And the guy in the back had just broken his foot. The guy in the front, who was in his 70s, reached into his pocket, pulled everything out, including some lint, handed it to the guy, and he says, here, jump on the bus so you can get back, so you can get on AC Transit. He took everything, literally everything he had, like not figuratively, like emptied the pocket inside out, gave it all to the guy. And he's like, I'll walk the 3 miles to the BART station. I know how to do that. I've done that a million times. What? Literally, he gave everything that he had, right? So, I mean, I could have given the $20, $40 in my pocket, right? That's those conviction moments. But there's a lot of myths that we can dispel. I can go into many, many, many of those things. But I would just say proximity really is the solution. If we can get up close to people, we can have personal relationship with people, then we're gonna act differently with people than we would if we just knew them remotely or we just called them those people. And I would just say one of the ways to do that is to call people by their name, by their person, and then their descriptive factors. So there's no homeless people. It's a person who is unhoused. So it's like people first language, things like that. Those are some of the things I would get.
Thank you very much. And thank you to all of our panelists. Those are all the questions that I have pre-prepared for them. So now we're going to open the floor to you. I'm sure you guys have a bunch of burning questions and comments. So I'm going to walk around with the mic. Please let me hold the mic while you ask your question into it, and we will get started.
So one of the things that we've talked about in the past is a guaranteed basic income. And I wondered if any of you, irrespective of how you come up with the money, let's not worry about that. What's your opinion about that, I guess? I've heard it be reasonably successful. And one of you, maybe it was you, Aaron, that said the best way to give money is to actually give it to them. And don't tell, and to your point, came about they're adults, let them make the decisions on their own. So I guess I'm just wondering what you think about guaranteed basic income.
Okay, well, they tried it in Oakland and they tried it in San Francisco. And guess what? It works. It actually works. There's a study that just came out. It's the first one of its kind, the cost to do nothing, out of Santa Clara. So the county of Santa Clara just did this study. They just dropped it. So the cost in Santa Clara each year to help somebody on the streets, when they're on the streets, is just over $62,000 a year. If you go and intentionally help somebody and you find them and you get them in touch with Sarah so that she can actually give them the services that they need, and they get the medical, and then we can get the physical, and then we can get the financial, and then we can get the housing, it costs less than $42,000 a year. So literally the cost, like just on a P&L, is less to our community to just help people. Housing First works. The solution, the cause of homelessness is people that are vulnerable coming in contact with broken systems. I talked about race earlier. In Alameda County, I think we're roughly 9% African American. More than 40% of the folks on our streets are African American. That's not a individual fault problem. It's a racism in our system problem. So if we can just address those issues and we can provide those resources, literally people get housed. They can get that basic income, and you know what they'll do? They'll take it. I mean, I just went. I have family members that utilize the food pantry I went to, that I operated. I went to a Thanksgiving meal, and they gave me a bag of fruit that came from the food pantry that they picked up, because they're not going to let it waste, right? UBI, Universal Basic Income, it does actually work. It is not some wild fantasy. If we make sure that people have their basic needs, right? There's this thing called the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. I don't know if you want to get into that deeper. Please look it up. Google all these things. But there's like 50 something things that we believe internationally that everyone should have: healthcare, housing, food, job, right? Like all of these things. If we can make sure that those things happen, and some of us, we need to put an ADU in our backyard and let somebody live in it, or we move into the ADU and let them live in the front.
All right, I have another question over here.
Hey, Aaron, just a quick comment. I understand the iced Americano addiction. I got your back, man. Don't worry. Okay. Just wanted to see what you guys thought about this. This came across my feed this morning from the New York Times. It says Governor Gavin Newsom escalated California's push to eradicate homeless encampments on Monday, calling on hundreds of cities, towns, and counties to effectively ban tent camps on sidewalks, bike paths, parklands, and other types of public property. He wants to do that statewide. Now, what does that mean to all of you? I mean, I just kind of want to see what the thought process was from your end.
So we're gonna jump up our prison. So that would be awesome. Yeah, that's part of the issues. So we know that doesn't work. Just sending people to prison. It's just like I said, one broken system to another broken system. And the healthcare, like we talk about getting good healthcare in the prisons. I am shocked to find out what is going on with my guys sometimes when they come out of prison, and we actually get them their medical and get them going and it is shocking how uncared for they are. And these are human beings, right? And so just throwing homeless into prisons, that's ridiculous. The 3-strike law was meant for something good. It turned out something horrible. I had guys who did over 25 years because their last crime, their 3rd strike was selling weed. Yep. 25 years for selling weed. And now it's legal, right? Like those are the kind of things of those broken systems, and it's the pendulum swing, right, of our government. And they'll be really tough on crime for a little bit, and then all of a sudden they go, oh, that doesn't work. And then they get real loose on crime, right? And then, oh, that doesn't work. And so they've got to figure out and have, I don't know what the answer is, but somewhere in the middle where we're caring with dignity and value of people. And I think that's the biggest thing, is that we're looking this as a problem, and these are humans and who have love in them. Every one of them has love in them. And we need to be valuing them and giving them dignity. And so, yeah.
So this is a real thing. Like, this is actually happening, and it's been happening for quite some time. But the thing that I would like to pose to you all is a lot of this information is public, like what encampments are being swept and at what times. If you can swing it, go to one of these encampments. It is heartbreaking, the things that you see in there. You see bulldozers just like taking away people's homes, and like, where are they supposed to go, right? Like, we don't have actual homes for all the people that are not housed. And so if you can go and use that opportunity to make connections, to offer whatever it is you can offer, it really means a lot. And a lot of these encampments are not like, they're not tents in the middle of a park necessarily, although some of them are. Some of them are like full-fledged mini cities. Like the Wood Street encampment in Oakland, like, is hundreds of people wide. They have, a lot of encampments have mayors, people that are kind of in charge and make decisions, that know what's going on with everyone else. The Wood Street encampment has like a pharmacy that they've like built themselves. Like they have structure, like they care about each other a lot. And so it is really hard to watch, this is like reason 5,000, right? Why people don't trust the government. But it's really hard to watch, and it's a really painful experience for people to endure. If you get the chance, I would really recommend, if you follow any of these online news feeds that will share with you what's happening and when. If I wasn't representing the government right now, I would say other things, but
turn the camera off.
if you get the chance to go and be with the people who are suffering in that, I would really encourage you to do it. I promise you, it will change your perspective.
And with a lot of these encampment sweeps, a lot of people think that the idea is that they're quote unquote cleaning up the city. There's an organization called A Meal with Dignity that posted a video the other day that said a lot of the items that people lose during these are Social Security cards, pictures of their family members, their mom's ashes. There's a long list of emotional ties and items that they have that are getting cleaned up in these sweeps, just to put things into perspective for you guys.
I think we had an answer over here, and I got one too.
Just really quick. These encampments, they're villages, they're communities, they're people who live in them. They love each other. They watch out for each other. They're people. Imagine somebody announced on the news tonight that they were going to choose a neighborhood, my neighborhood or your neighborhood, and they were going to come in and just bulldoze the neighborhood because we don't like it. Imagine what your life would be like if you woke up in the morning and every single thing that you owned was gone. And, I know people say, oh, they walk around with their shopping carts or their little Target bags, or that's everything they own. If you thought tomorrow that your house was going to burn down, what would you put in that bag? Or what would you put in that cart? And just think about that. Because, governor will say, let's go bulldoze this encampment. It's not an encampment, it's their home. So that's how I feel.
A couple of things I would add. In California, the average to incarcerate someone is $133,000 a year. So I would say, just very pragmatically, it is extremely expensive to criminalize the situation, and it won't solve it. And this person will get out of jail. So let's say, like, we just walked through this whole thing with the city of Fremont. We asked all these questions, and we asked, okay, so the person gets cited, right? And they say, okay, then they don't pay the fine. How are they going to pay a fine? They don't pay the fine, then they're arrested. Okay, then where are they arrested? They're held at the city of Fremont holding tank until they're taken to Santa Rita jail. They go to Santa Rita jail, then they're released from Santa Rita jail. Anybody know where that is? It's in Dublin, California. Do you know what happens when you're unhoused and you're released on Santa Rita Road? Does anybody know what happens? They walk, and if you stop walking, what happens? You're getting picked up. And you're getting arrested because it's run by Alameda County Sheriff's Office, runs the Dublin Police Services. It's not a police department, it's the Sheriff's Office. So they run the jail. They make sure everybody leaves Dublin. Do you guys know what the homeless point in time count is for the city of Dublin? Why is somebody from the Livermore government laughing in this room? It was less than 20. Do you guys know what it is for Pleasanton? Close to 100. Do you know what it is for Livermore? Over 300. Which one of those numbers is accurate? Which one of those numbers says, hey, you can be here and we're going to take care of you because you're our neighbors? Which one of the ones says, I'm going to disappear you? Which is the ultimate power and control that we're hearing people talking about in government. In government, if we are here to serve people, that's what we're supposed to do. Okay, that's great. If we're not, then we're going to disappear people. So I would say it's too expensive. We're going to criminalize the situation. It does not change anything. The person will be unhoused. They will be in worse trauma. I don't know, have you ever served inside incarceration? She was this therapist at Santa Rita. Did that impact their mental health, being incarcerated?
Not one bit.
Okay, well, my bad. Yeah, it's traumatic doing that. So you're literally going to take somebody who's traumatized, take away everything that they have, put it in an evidence bag, remove their shoelaces, throw them into a place, and then release them after they serve their time for not having any resource. And then they're now released on Dublin Boulevard in Santa Rita. You know what I mean? It's like literally, it's not a solution, right? It's literally pushing it down the road. It's going to cost everybody in here more money to do that. I know somebody, real quick, just a quick story. I know somebody who is wealthy in this area. They had a dog sitter, and they found out the dog sitter ran into the garbage truck. They had an accident when they were leaving their house. The garbage truck, they found there was like this situation like, hey, we'll drive you home, get you taken care of. That way you don't have to worry about it. You can borrow one of our cars. Where they're like, well, that was our home. Found out that the person was living in the vehicle, and it was a couple. So then they said, oh, you're never going to be unhoused again. So they put him in their extra room that night. They worked with them. They went through financial support over months to be able to not just giving them money, but like walking through their game plan, helping to stabilize them, make sure they had shower, make sure they had a bathroom, make sure that they slept. They slept all these crazy hours because they were laying. I don't know if you guys know what edema is. Anybody talk about edema? Most people that are in vehicles have all kinds of health problems due to the fact that they don't lay flat. Their body, we have to lay flat every night. So then all these things start to regulate, right? Then they go to get an apartment. They support with a deposit. They get into an apartment. Now they're going to have a home for the rest of their lives. And they just guided these people. It was a couple, great young couple, right? They were their employees, and then they just welcomed them in. Who's got extra space? You got extra space, extra room. You know what I mean? Bring people in. I did the math. If all 1.6 million people got together in groups of 133 of you got together and have one person, there would be nobody on the street. How many people in this room right now? Less than 133. I think we could all work. If we all work together, we can help one person, right?
Thank you, guys.
Oh, sorry. Hi, my name's Josh, and I don't really have a question for the panel. I kind of got a couple questions for everybody. It's kind of based off what Sarah said about visiting camps. And does anybody have a little bit of space in their car? Maybe a little bit. Well, before you go to those camps, you could put Bibles, you could put hygiene kits, you could put blankets, you could put clothes. I love keeping all this stuff in my car. And so wherever I go, it kind of gives me the opportunity when I see somebody unhoused, because I was out on the streets for over 8 years, and I love going back to the camps that I used to live at. And there's still people at these camps that were there when I was there 15, 20 years ago. And out of all the things that I give out, what do you guys think goes the quickest or is asked for the most besides prayer? No, it's the Bibles. Yeah. It's the Bibles. I've gone through at least 30 Bibles in the last month, and I need more. Yeah, they want Bibles, and they want prayer, and they want a hug. And then all the other stuff comes second, for sure. And that's all I really got.
Hey, raise your hand if you'd be willing to take people out to encampments. I would. Raise your hand, Josh. He'll take somebody. We got people right here. Okay. If you guys want to go, get in touch with us. We'll take you out to meet some people. It'll be a great experience.
Just bouncing off what Sarah said earlier about the Wood Street encampment, something that I did want to point out is that the Wood Street encampment is no longer there. It was bulldozed. There are some RVs there now, and Oakland still doesn't have services. And what had ended up happening was you have a bunch of providers running through Wood Street, knocking on people's windows and stuff and saying, the bulldozers are coming. You got to get out.
I also just want to point out that Ash is also an Alameda County behavioral health clinician with crisis services.
Yeah. So I actually have a transitional sober living environment myself. So I work with a lot of my clients, and they have a number of different barriers sort of to get to permanent stable housing. Like, it could be, justice impacted, substance use disorder, mental health issues, a bunch of different things. So I was just wondering, what advice do you guys have in terms of me trying to help them navigate all these different services? And is there a priority for them? Because it's a lot and it's overwhelming for a lot of them. I'm just wondering, what advice do you have when there's so many different barriers, how to even get started or to help them navigate that?
I'm with you. It's seriously, it's difficult, right? Housing is probably the hardest thing, and I'm not sure how long they're able to stay with you in your home. Thanks for doing that. We need good homes, man. We need more homes, special transitional homes that buy people times and places that are safe, right? They don't feel like everything's going to get stolen from or anything. Get them. I mean, for us, we just try to get them on the list as fast as we can, right? And the hard part, my clients, a lot of them will get jobs, and hopefully they make enough money to get into some housing and stuff like that. But then a lot of them don't have, if they've been in prison for 30 years, they don't have any rental history, right? And so their references, and they don't have too many references. So we try to add a program fee to be able to say, hey, they paid rent. And then that person can call me and I can talk to him and say, oh yeah, James was a fantastic, right? And he paid all the time and was clean. He ran a room for me, right? And so that helps with getting people into places. But as far as the social systems, the lists are long, and there's a lot of people that are in need. And I wish it was easier, but it's not for us. At least I haven't found the magic wand on that.
One thing I can say is statistics show that housing first works if you do the full housing first, and it's wraparound services with housing. So one of the breakdowns we have is we believe as a society that people need to earn their ability to get indoors. So like, for example, we say you got to get sober, then you can get inside. And then once you're inside, then you've got to get a job. And if you get a job, you can stay. And then and what happens is there's breakdowns in all those points, right? And people do really good for a certain amount of time. That's called breath holding, right? It's a thing that we do. We show up really well. We're going to do everything. And then eventually we let go of our breath and we lose everything, right? We lash out. how do we respond when then there's a lash out? I think one of the things, I just happen to know you, and I know you don't believe that you have to do it all yourself. I know Josh, he doesn't believe he has to do it all himself. That's the answer. Community, right? We have to surround people with all of these things in the criminogenic needs assessment. You've got to have an answer for all of that, right? It may not be you, but we need to make sure that that's available for everyone. I would say if we're talking about sobering, as a person who is an addict in recovery, I have to go to meetings. I have to have a sponsor. I have to work the 12 steps. I have to have a book. I have to have a journal. I have to have a lot of caffeine. Like, I mean, just like really, like if I don't have those things, I start to get into panic mode. I have to have affection. I have to have acceptance. I have to people tell me that I'm okay, even though somebody else is mad at me, because part of my addiction is the fact that I need other people to like me, and I just can't control that. But I'm going to try, but I'll just say, like, in recovery, the thing is we just have to be able to have services, right? So if you're in a recovery home, honestly, if you could have somebody do a meeting every day, and just real quick, if any of y'all are trying to start a meeting, just ask people, hey, what are you grateful for? What are you struggling with? And what's your goal for the week? And that's your meeting.
I would say just be aware of your resources. You can run into anybody at any point in time that would be willing to help. I can speak for myself. If you need any kind of nursing care in the transitional housing, I would be more than happy to volunteer my services. You can get my number from, I can give it to you after this. You can get my number from pretty much, just come see me.
I think I'd add one more thing to what I said, was that building of community is big, and connections with other people and groups for the individuals in your home is huge. And then also one thing I didn't talk about is service, is finding opportunities for the people in your home to serve and give their life away. I have found that they make more connections that way with like-minded people, where they're serving people who are in need and handing out food and moving single moms and all kinds of stuff, right? They're giving their life away, and now they have another 20 other friends that they've met. And then the need goes out of, hey, I need housing. And they're like, well, I know James, right? Like I got a room, right? And that's how a lot of our connections happen. So that'd be my encouragement also.
All right, we got another question over here.
And so there's a lot of crazy, chaotic things coming from Washington. And I have kids in school, so the attack on the Department of Education hit home. And I was wondering, based off of all the things that are happening, what worries you most about the things that are coming down the pipe that might impact the work you're doing?
Don't be scared now.
Yes. The answer is yes. If Ash is not representing the county, can he talk? It is deeply impacting every entity that is funded by any government funds, like deeply. I'm just going to talk about personally what I'm the most worried about. I'm really worried about, there's a lot of things I'm worried about. I am very worried about the erasure of anyone that's not a white male in research. That is already happening. If we don't have like a body of knowledge to inform our decisions, that is deeply concerning. And that is happening. Alameda County had to rebrand our health equity division to health excellence because we cannot be about equity. Although we are. For the record, Alameda County is fully about equity. But we can't have that in our name because it suggests certain things. The way that research is funded is very concerning. So I want to be clear that what's happening is like erasure, right? If you cannot learn about and publish about to make informed decisions about how to treat and serve a certain population or people that identify a certain way, we have a really big problem. I'm really concerned about gender affirming clinics. I'm really concerned about anything gender affirming, to be honest. I mean, there's a lot to be concerned about, I would say. I cannot go into detail about that, but I think you can all kind of guess where I'm going with it.
I'm an independent consultant. I can go into some details about some things. Racism exists in the United States. And now racism is being activated and being given the wheels to treat people poorly. So what Sarah just mentioned is that we are removing history from history books. We're removing access to information. They're removing entire libraries of information, just deleting it, that demonstrates the truth that racism exists, so that if we remove it, then all of a sudden it doesn't exist anymore. It's not true. We treat people differently because of their gender, because of their race, because of their sexual orientation, because of their gender identity, because of their height, because of their poverty. I mean, like, we treat people differently because they have orange slippers on from Santa Rita jail. We treat people differently because they're talking to themselves. We treat people differently. We do that naturally as human beings to protect ourselves. Well, we're all telling you right now, we know people that are unhoused. We have wonderful, loving relationships with folks that are in that situation. I'm nervous, and I have seen it happen where people are being physically assaulted. They're being verbally assaulted because of their color of their skin. There's no longer this, hey, hold back, you can't talk to people like that. So people are becoming more and more bold to be racist, to be sexist, misogynist. I mean, all of the ists are happening. And now you're taking away funding that supports the opposition to those things. So anytime people don't have a place to go. So you have people that are people of color, transgender. I mean, we can go through a whole list of people, but like our Black transgender women are kind of like treated like the worst in the world. If there's scales of this, there's anti-Blackness in with all of this. I don't know how deep y'all want to go on this, but I can keep going. If y'all want to get up and leave, you can leave. But I will say this is true. I'm not being dramatic. This is true. It's proven. So I'll go back to this piece, like what you mentioned, Carrie, is like in your question is like, what are we most afraid of? I think I'm most afraid of the fact that we've been relying upon something that is going to let us all down. It has been letting us down, but it was giving us funding or giving us opportunity to stand against it. So I'm worried that now we're no longer going to move forward. It's going to stop the movement. So one of the things I'm involved in many worlds is for us to take care of us. Right? Like I know that right now I know of 3 people in there that own sober living environments. Y'all need to work together. And then there's a nurse in this room that's willing to help you. And then is there anybody that can supply toilet paper? Is there anybody that's in the ability to get water out to people? Like, what we have to really start thinking about this, because these pieces that were a part of our community have been removed. They're really removed. And if you think, oh yeah, no, we treat people right because I do, that's not true. You're the exception. You guys came to this thing to learn about homelessness. Most of the time I go to these rooms and people are yelling and screaming at us because we're defending people that don't have a house. So I'll just say, I think there's a lot more to this, but I'm really nervous that people are going to actually become physically violent towards others.
One last question before we go. Nope. All right. Ooh. Okay. Just kidding. Kim has a question.
Before you conclude, I just wanted to say there were many times a question was asked either by you or by somebody else in the room, and I started biting my tongue because I wanted to be up on the panel and respond to it, but you all hit anything that needed to be said, and I am again honored to just know each and every one of you and the impact that you made on me, who's been in this field for 20 plus years. It just hit, emotionally for me to be hearing your values and your missions and your passion for the population that we serve. And I think you all heard it as well, right? So I want to thank you for being here tonight, for just on my behalf, and I'm going to let you be Goodness Village. But I also want to just shout out to Jackie how phenomenal this was. So thank you. Thank you so much.
All right, I'll be honest, I don't know what time it is, so sorry for holding you hostage if it's 9 o'clock. But before we go, oh, that's not too bad. Perfect. Photo finish, that was great. Before we go, I just want to say thank you so much again for taking time out of your Monday evening for us, taking this opportunity to educate yourselves further. I hope that you were able to feel the passion from all of our panelists here today, showcasing all the love and care that they have in their work. Also, thank you to Josh in the back, who I can't see anymore, for talking about what these encampments need. Although we do not have Bibles for you, we do have socks from the National Charity League, who have graciously donated weatherproof socks in the back, held by our housing manager, Shawnette. Please grab one. Yes, our Vanna White. Yeah. Please grab one before you go. Grab two if you feel compelled. This is an opportunity for you to have that conversation, for you to approach that person on the corner that you've kind of turned a blind eye to or thought that's someone else's job. Now it's your job. You have the tools, you have the resources, it's your responsibility. You guys heard so many amazing things here today, but the one common theme was community. It's on our community to make sure that it stays a community. So thank you so much for joining us today. Right before you guys start packing up and stuff, we end all of our meetings at Goodness Village with a big alligator clap. So I'm gonna ask you all to join us so you feel a little bit more part of the Goodness Village family here. So I'm gonna say 3, 2, 1, and we're all gonna clap at the same time. I know it's kind of late, so we're not gonna keep doing it. Normally we would just keep going till it sounds crisp. So is everyone ready? 3, 2, 1.